Hey, Pokedad fan club, it's me, Pokedad, and we're looking at a deck revolving around Florges Break. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I don't know how competitive this deck really is, but I've just took it to League, and I had a lot of fun. I didn't lose a game with it, so it is pretty good, and if you can get set up, it has pretty good staying power in spite of the fact that we're dealing with some pretty weak fairy Pokemon. So let's just take a look at we'll start with Florges EX. So this is a Florges Break, Florges EX, Slurpuff deck. All right, and our main attacker here is Florges EX. Now, the thing that makes this deck really awesome is that Florges EX has this first attack called Lead. Lead allows you to search your deck for a supporter card and reveal it and put it in your hand. Shuffle your deck afterward. So if you're not set up, you're always going to have a supporter card for the next turn. So you can continue to stream cards, stream whatever supporter you need. If you need a Sycamore, which is what we typically get a lot of, we can just lead for the Sycamore, and we know we're going to get to see at least 7 more cards for the next turn, barring they don't judge us or red card us or something like that. So that's one of the reasons why this deck can actually get set up fairly decent. Now, as far as the attack, Florges EX has a pretty decent attack. I've showcased Florges EX in a Skyfield deck before. When we had a Colress, it made a lot more sense to use that because we could really get through a lot of cards. But since we're just playing a standard format right here, we're not going to use the Skyfield, and plus it's also harder with the break to be able to get a big bench for Skyfield because we have so many Pokemon trying to get evolved into the break. So we're just going to just Bright Garden, and our typical attack's only going to do 120 damage. So if we get a bench full of 5 and then we Bright Garden, we can hit 120. And we know ahead of time we're going to be just doing 2-hit KOs for the most part. Alright, that's no big deal because we have a couple things to help us out. Now the Bright Garden and Lead both have the Lead requires a fairy energy and the Bright Garden requires a fairy and a colorless. But if we can get Florges out, we can use Calm Aroma, and that requires us to have one our fairy energy costs 1 our attacks cost 1 fairy energy less. So now Florges EX can lead for free, or it can Bright Garden for just a colorless, and since we're just playing fairy energy in this deck, basically for 1 fairy energy we can Bright Garden and do 120 damage. Now I know a lot of people are saying 120 is not a lot, but when you're only using 1 energy to do that, and you can stream Florges's from turn to turn with just 1 energy, it's actually quite good. Now, instead of playing Muscle Band in this deck, we're going to be doing 2-hit KOs anyway, so it makes more sense for us to play Hard Charms and Assault Vests. And frankly, when the next set comes out and the Fighting Spirit belts, that's going to make Florges even better because that's going to allow the attack to do 10 damage more, but then it's also going to give Florges an extra 40 HP. So now Florges becomes a massive 200 HP Pokemon that can hit for 130 damage with 1 basic energy. And if we tried to do a Skyfield, we could. Matter of fact, I may play around with it and see what I can do. See if I can maybe add a Skyfield or something like that. But anyway, so that's what we have here. We've got Assault Vest. It reduces damage by 40 if our opponent has special energy attached to the Pokemon that's attacking. So we play 2 Assault Vests and 2 Hard Charms so that we can help protect this Florges EX that only has 160 HP. Alright, so getting on to our Florges line, so we play a 2-2-2-2. Alright, I don't use rare candies. I just find them quite unreliable. And if we get Quaking Punched or Vileplume, there's no way we can get our Florges out. And if we can't get our Florges out, that makes this deck extremely clunky, or a lot more clunky, because now we're having to attach 2 energies to Florges to be able to attack. So I would rather just evolve naturally, knowing that it's going to take me time. But that's okay. So we start off with Flabébé. Wish actually could be very useful. I've used it before. Start it, attach an energy and Wish, and you can grab a card. If you flip a coin of heads, search your deck for a card and put it into your hand. That can be very useful. But we rarely run into that. Floette, Aromatherapy, and Magic Leaf. We really don't use that, but at least it gets Flabébé from a 30 Pokemon to a 70. And then we can evolve to Florges, which is a stage 2. And I've already talked about the Calming Aroma, but also Wondershine. If we get both Florgeses out, we can Wondershine for just 1 energy, because this Calming Aroma does stack. So that would reduce these energies by 2. So Wondershine for 70, and then the active Pokemon is now confused. And if we have to play against, walls that Florges EX can't get through, Beautifly, Pyroar, we can get through Aegislash pretty easy, but he will hit us for weakness. But those Pyroar and Beautifly, we can always come to Florges, and 70 damage and being able to confuse them is, pretty good, because again, we're doing a 2-hit KO to those types of Pokemon. Alright, and then we get to the Florges Break. It adds an additional 30 HP to Florges, so now we're at 140 instead of 110, but it also adds another ability called Floral Breeze. And Floral Breeze is actually pretty good, because we can get rid of 1 special condition, and we can also get rid of heal ourselves 30 damage, and that does stack too. So if we're able to get both of them out, which is pretty rare, but if you can get both of them out, we can heal 2 special conditions and heal ourselves 30 damage every turn. Also, what's really cool is we play 4 Fairy Garden, so we can kind of slip in between attacks. So like if they hit one of our Florges and tries to KO it, but they're not able to, then we can move it to the bench, bring another Florges up, stick another Fairy Energy on, and begin to wail away again. So that's really cool. And I'll also talk about some other healing aspects that we have to this deck. Finally, we do play a 3-3 line of Swirlix, Slurpuff. The Swirlix isn't really anything big, but we play this Tasting Slurpuff. This again helps us to set up really fast, because we can do a lot of things here. We can, if we get a couple of these set up, we can always taste for 2 and get 2 more cards every turn. We can also judge our opponent, which will slow them down, and then still draw 2, so we're going to have 6 cards, which is really good. Alright, so we talked about the Pokemon. It's a pretty simple concept. Let's talk about our item cards. So the first thing I want to look at is level balls. This is going to help us get the Flabébé, the Floette, and the Swirlix and Slurpuff. So we can target any of these 4 cards. Of course, we can't get any of these other big guys, but that's okay, because we're just playing 2, and that helps us fill our bench quicker, so that Bright Garden can actually hit a little bit harder. We'll also play 4 Ultra Balls, so we can get the other big guys out, and that allows us to get the Florges Break and the Florges when we need it. We also play 2 Buddy Buddy Rescue. Now, this card, I've got to tell you, I really didn't think this card was all that great when I first started using it, but I realized if you're going to be able to get some of these breaks out, you're going to have to use Buddy Buddy Rescue. If you're, especially with Florges and Chestnut, which are particularly stage 3s, you can't just hold a Sycamore in your hand when you have a Florges Break, you know, a lot of people want to just hold that break card in their hand. You got to sycamore it away, and Buddy Buddy Rescue allows you to get it later on in the game. So it's okay if we run into a Florges or a Florges Break early in the game. We can Ultra Ball them away, or we can Sycamore them away, and we have 3 ways to get them back. We've played 2 Buddy Buddy Rescues, and we also play 1 Super Rod, which allows us to get any combination of Pokemon and energy cards back into our deck. So that's why those are in there. Now, Trainer's Mail is just a consistency booster. I really feel like most decks should be playing at least a couple of these. There are a few exceptions, but I want, because of the way this deck requires so many puzzle pieces to get the breakout, I just need the greatest consistency I possibly can get, and so playing 4 Trainer's Mails helps me get to that consistency. We're only going to play 3 VS Seeker, mainly because we're a little tight on space, and also we're not playing Battle Compressors, and when I don't play Battle Compressors, sometimes I feel like our hand can just get stuck with VS Seekers, and if there's no way to get a supporter into the discard pile and we get stuck with a ton of VS Seekers, sometimes it's just better for us to have the trainers instead of have to worry about the VS Seekers. So we're playing 1 less VS Seeker because we don't have any Battle Compressors, and we can put that extra into our supporter line. We're playing a pretty big supporter line, not a whole lot, but we're playing a lot of 1-ofs. So let's talk about those a little bit. Alright, the first one is Bridget. This kind of is probably a no-brainer. This card has become more versatile to me than I used to think. I used to thought Pokemon Fan Club was a lot better. In some cases, Pokemon Fan Club is better. But when you're dealing with these basics that require breaks, it's just very helpful to be able to get 2 Swirlix and a Flabébé, or 2 Flabébé and a Swirlix out right away. It helps us get Florges' attack going stronger, quicker, and it also allows us to begin getting the evolution lines going so that we can get the Florges and the Florges Break out. And also the Slurpuff, because the sooner we can get the Slurpuff, the sooner we can taste, and when we're tasting, we're able to get those lines out, the Florges line out, even faster. So Bridget's very helpful, and also even at the end game, it's not too bad in this deck because we can always grab another. It's kind of like an Ultra Ball for us so that we can grab a Florges EX. So in decks that using kind of like breaks and EXs together, like Zoroark Break with Yveltal EX, I think Bridget is probably a better play than Fan Club. But if you're looking at like a big, a heavy EX deck, I think Fan Club is better because then you can grab a Hoopa and maybe another card that you need, and then the Hoopa can then turn around and grab 3 EXs for you. Because remember, Bridget has to go straight to the bench. It does not come to your hand, so you can't use the abilities of Hoopa or Shaman with Bridget. Whereas Pokemon Fan Club, they both go to your hand, so you can use both of them. One other thing I should mention about Bridget is if you don't have the space to put 3 basic Pokemon down, let's say you only have 2, you can only grab 2 and put 2. You can't grab the 3rd one and put it in your hand. So be careful. If you've already got a big bench, Bridget may be just one of those cards you want to just use as Ultra Ball fodder and get rid of it. That's why I only play 1, because it's really only good early game. Late game, it doesn't really help me as much. It can be useful in mid game to grab the Florges EX though if I need it. Alright, we played 1 Cassius. Now, at first I was going to play AZ. Actually, I did play AZ. But Cassius makes a lot more sense because I have the Hard Charms and the Assault Vessels that vests that I don't want to lose. So Cassius just takes the energy and that and puts it all back into the deck. Instead of AZing it back to my hand, most of the time I'm able to stream pretty well. Oh, someone wants to challenge me while I'm recording, a friend of mine. But Cassius allows me to put it right back into the deck, and then I can usually keep the bench full with something else already in my hand. So Cassius, I prefer that over AZ. Now we're doing a lot of healing from like Florges Break anyway, so we don't use Cassius too much, but there are some times where he can come in clutch. Hex Maniac, if we're playing Vileplume decks or we have walls that we can't get around, we would rather take them down with Florges than with Florges EX rather than Florges. Hex Maniac can be useful. Judge, there's twofold reason to have this. First of all, we can get our opponent back, get our opponent's hand size down, but also we can keep ourselves from decking out. Sometimes when we're playing tasting, we can draw through our deck pretty quickly, and so we need to get our hand size back down and put more cards back into our deck. So Judge can do that for us too. I do play 2 Lysanders. That's just typical for me because I think it's one of the best supporters there are. I mean, being able to grab a benched Pokemon from your opponent and put it on the active spot and then take a knockout on you usually. This Florges hits right at the Shaman at 120, can knock out Shaman pretty easily, so we can take knockouts on Shaman. And notice we're not playing any Shaman in our deck, so I think that's pretty cool. We do play Birch. This could be switched out for another Judge if we want to, but I just felt like we needed another draw supporter. And since we're in standard, Birch is probably, most people think, is better than Shauna. So we're going to play 1 Birch. Play 4 Sycamores, discard your hand, dump it, and then draw 7. Very useful. Alright, we talked about the 4 Fairy Gardens. This is just for consistency. We want to be able to move Florges in and out. Florges EX is in and out so that we don't get them lost, and we can give ourselves a little bit of time to either Cassius or get a breakout so we can begin healing them. So Fairy Garden helps us out with that. We play 2 Assault Vests and 2 Hard Charms, and I've already mentioned we do that just to protect our Florges and keep the damage off. And then we just play 7 Energies. Because Florges reduces the need to play energies in this deck, to use very many energy to attack. 7 energies all we need, so comes in really handy. Anyway guys, that is the Florges Break with Florges EX deck profile. I'll do a couple of videos showing battles in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. But this is PokeDad signing off. Hit like, subscribe, and comment below. Tell me what you think of the deck. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.